G'day there guys, it's Connie here again from Marking Industries, and we are back once again with some more stories from Reddit. As always, hit like and subscribe and all that jazz, and we'll get straight into the stories. Alrighty, we're currently on the marriage subreddit. This one was written by user NotOkToday, and it's titled, I just found my wife has been cheating on me with multiple partners for the past 2 years. I'm in shock and I really need some advice right now. Me, 40 male, and my wife, 37, have been married for 10 years, and we recently celebrated our anniversary. We have 2 wonderful kids together. Since the beginning of the year, things have been off between us. She's been acting strangely since the beginning of the year, irritable, avoiding me, and we haven't been intimate much. Some days she's happy, some others fully irritated. Sometimes she's a great mother to our kids, some other times she wishes they'd never been born. Recently, I had to go to the urologist for a urinary tract infection, and the test suggested it might be an STD. This was a huge shock because I've never been with anyone other than my wife since we started dating. Right now, she's away at a so-called business seminar, of which I talked about in a different post. She's been keeping diaries for over a decade, and out of desperation, I read them for the first time ever. It turns out she's been having multiple sexual partners for the past 2 years. In particular, there was one affair that lasted over a year, and it seems part of her irritability was due to her lover moving on to someone else. I also discovered she has a hidden Tinder account too, and has been meeting with other men regularly. I am devastated beyond words. I feel lost and unsure of what to do, especially since we have 2 little kids who mean the world to me. I need some advice on how to handle this situation. Should I confront her immediately? Should I consult a lawyer first? How do I even begin to process this betrayal and protect my kids through all of this? Thank you for any guidance you can offer in this incredibly difficult time. Some additional info from OP. Thank you for all the comments. As everyone's suggesting, I'll try to consult discreetly with a lawyer ASAP, gather as much evidence as I can, get the STD treated, and, as painful as it is, perform paternity tests on my kids. To be honest, I'm a complete mess right now and cannot think properly. All kinds of thoughts are crossing my mind. Part of me still loves her and wants to forgive her. The other is just full of disgust and hatred and wishes I've never even met her at all. I wish I could just disappear right now. Oh man, what do I even say? It's just another run-of-the-mill ultimate betrayal on Reddit. But also to find out by getting an STD, that's rough. Let's go to those comments. Copies of evidence to lawyer, go full no contact, serve her, don't drink, work out, good luck. Get proof, get a lawyer, and do what the lawyer says. Assuming an open marriage has no appeal to you. 1. Take a deep breath and start lifting weights and eating right. These will help you process the emotions in a healthy way, instead of drowning in the bottle. 2. Don't say anything to her. 3. Document all evidence. 4. Talk to a lawyer first before making any moves. 5. It's probably been happening your entire marriage. Get paternity tests on your kids. Suggest 23andMe as something fun. 6. Plan your next move and execute on it like a divine masculine. Treat the divorce and custody battle like a business negotiation. Keep emotions low. And 7. Remember, this is going to be extremely traumatizing to your children. Keep their mental health at the forefront always. Do not talk badly about your wife. If she tries to destroy your relationship with them, or lay the blame at your feet, just stay calm. Tell them you love them and this is between her and you, but you both love them very much, and it's nothing they did. Don't tell them about your wife's indiscretions until they're old enough to handle it, if ever. Yeah, pretty sound advice there. Okay, Opie makes an update 1 month later. Thank you all for your invaluable advice and support. It has been a tremendous help during this difficult time. After my last post, my in-laws kindly offered to look after the kids while my wife was away at her seminar. They remain unaware of the turmoil I've been experiencing. I used this time to go through her diaries and take pictures of their contents. Each entry felt like a stab in the back, leaving me in a state of shock and disbelief. I just don't recognize anymore the person I thought I knew and loved for over a decade. To avoid going into too much detail, the revelations in the diaries would make any movie or TV series I've ever seen pale in comparison. She has been involved with at least 6 different men over the past 2 years. These affairs occurred not only during her so-called seminars, but also during short business trips, dinners, and other supposed work-related events. Meanwhile, I was at home, taking care of the kids and naively believing I was supporting her career. Some entries vividly describe how great these encounters were for her, all the while expressing gratitude towards me for being a devoted husband and father, without a single trace of remorse. This lack of guilt and the extent of her deception make me question her emotional and mental state. While reading through the diaries, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair and was seriously contemplating suicide. In the end, I sought refuge with friends for a few days, as I felt I couldn't be alone, otherwise I'd do something that could never be taken back. They really supported me a lot during this time and helped me get in contact with a therapist. I'm now taking regular therapy sessions once per week. They also helped me in getting in touch with lawyers specializing in divorce. I'm also getting treatment for my STD as well. Returning home after picking up the kids from my in-laws was an emotionally devastating experience. I couldn't bring myself to smile at all. At some point, while contemplating all the possible ways I could end my life, my daughter just looked at me and saw my face. Without saying a word, she just came over and wrapped her arms around me. At that moment, I broke down, held her tightly, and burst into tears in front of her. She's my sweet angel, and the shame of having considered leaving my kids to suffer under their mother's disdain was almost too much to bear. For the first few weeks after finding out, I could barely sleep at all and had to depend on sleeping pills just to get through the nights. My motivation was at an all-time low, affecting both my home life and my work. I forced myself to continue exercising and found out it was the only thing that actually made me feel better during this time. To whoever said in the previous post that I shouldn't give up on doing exercise, thank you. You may have just saved my life. The stress intensified after my wife returned from her trip. Initially, it took all my energy to hide my disgust at her and the knowledge I'd gained about her actions. I've somewhat gotten used to this now, but it remains emotionally draining. She did notice something was off, but still appears to believe that I'm entirely unaware of what has transpired. Her lack of shame is staggering. Just recently, she asked me to buy her the expensive gift I promised her for our 10-year anniversary, for which I made an excuse to not buy yet, despite her going into another business trip just the day after our anniversary, which was described in extremely painful detail in her diaries. To make matters worse, she was even arranging to meet her latest partner on the day of my birthday. Nowadays, I've started to feel a lot better thanks to exercise and therapy. I'd never been to a therapist before in my life, and to be honest, I'm regretting not having done it sooner. Despite my wife betraying me in the worst possible way, part of me still thought that maybe all of this was my fault. Maybe if I'd done this, if I'd put more effort into that. I blamed myself for a lot of things. My therapist helped me see through it, that while I could have done some things differently, in the end I cannot be held responsible for the actions she chose to take, and no one deserves to be betrayed in the way I was. If I'm at fault for anything, it's for blaming myself for everything, always putting her needs ahead of my own, and trusting her unconditionally without question. While it was extremely hard for me to balance work and looking after the kids alone every time she went on any of these trips, I always let her go after convincing myself that I was doing it for her, to support her business, to let her relieve stress from being at home, that this is what a supportive husband would do, and that if maybe I had a better job or made her happier, she wouldn't feel the need to escape from home. I'd be lying if I said I'm not depressed anymore, but I'm certainly doing much better these days. Nowadays, I feel more rage rather than sadness, and it's the rage that keeps me going. My therapist advised me to channel this rage into the things I do, which has worked surprisingly well. I talked with 2 law firms about my situation and was advised to collect more evidence, which I've been devoting myself to for the past few weeks. I've finished digitizing all of her diaries from the past 2 years, which were quite a lot. I got access to her computer and found just way too many photos, chat conversations, and documents to help my case. She's been posting all of her adventures into a very distorted private group in Facebook, to which I've also taken plenty of screenshots of. I've compiled a list of all of her sexual partners in the diaries and have been identifying them one by one on social media, etc. I've gathered everything I could on her current sexual partners and managed to figure out where they live and or work. Now I'm debating whether I should confront them or not. The things I've read in these diaries are so bizarre that I thought maybe she was just writing material for some sort of twisted novel. That is, until I found all the other stuff on her computer, etc. Maybe I'm broken myself as well, but a part of me is actually enjoying this process of gathering all these tiny pieces of evidence and information, cross-referencing them with her diaries, and finding everything I can about her and her lovers. Part of me wants to see her burn on social media by posting directly everything I've found out, since a big part of her business is centered around social media, but I'm refraining myself from doing so since this would also affect both me and the kids, as well as her parents, who have been nothing but kind to me since we got married. I'm also not sure if I should bring this to light to her parents as well, since this will probably devastate them. I'm planning on confronting her after talking further with the lawyers about how to make sure to gain custody of my kids. The country I live in has a rather unfair tendency of granting custody to the mother, even if she's unfit for it, setting the terms of the divorce and child support. In any case, thank you all for the advice. A few weeks ago I was full of despair and had no idea what to do, nor how to approach the situation. Nowadays, I feel that little by little I'm digging myself out of this hole I've been thrown into. Sorry if I don't respond to all your comments right now. My full attention is devoted to protecting my kids. Now for some final comments. Well, let's hope you talk to your lawyer again soon. I'm not sure why you need more evidence, but you have plenty now. Have her served in public. Heck, even at the seminar she's supposedly at. Don't confront. Don't let her know a damn thing until you have all of your ducks in a row. Don't post anything on social media. Don't confront any of her lovers. Just keep doing what you're doing. Let her find out when she's served. What an absolute piece of crap your wife is. Document and keep gathering information to do everything you can to get full custody of your children. Do it for them. They'll grow up and come to understand that their mother is a mentally ill tramp that destroyed their family. Keep going to therapy and see a psychiatrist and get on medication if they deem it needed. You need to keep your nerve and a level head as you go through this. Meanwhile, look up Grey Rock and 180. Yeah, I can't help but feel like Opie's purposely torturing himself by going through all the evidence like this. I mean, it's clear that he enjoys playing detective, otherwise who would put themselves through this? Anyway, what are your thoughts about this one? Let me know in the comments. Either way, we're going to leave it there and move on to another story. Alrighty, jumping over to Am I the A-hole? This one was written by user Artistic Minute, and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for losing it and calling my father a weak, pathetic man in front of his family? My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He is extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself, and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer would mess up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked-in stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore. She insulted him at every step. She cheated on him relentlessly and even brought affair partners into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me so many times, as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave, but he never budged. When she would direct her anger onto myself in the form of screaming, insulting, or general demeaning, my father never once found the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to Dad about something Mum did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug, or just insist I forget about it. Hell, he would even try and justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18, and my father just sat there and looked sullen, didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful, and I could have easily gone down the incel route if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get into a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed my father in the divorce. She was killed a year later in a DUI with one of her affair partners. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to die, and that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now, have a girlfriend who is perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life, and fully understands the situation with my family. I have learned to not allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past, or so I thought, you'll see, and instead put that energy to my future. I have been extraordinarily low contact and near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there, as it was his side of the family. They have many issues with him, but his family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talk in the background. He was discussing how a co-worker of his was going through a divorce as he discovered his wife was having an affair and was positioned to have a very favourable divorce on his side. My father remarked how his co-worker should work instead to forgive his wife and, by his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, and how he believed he set a great example for me in that extent. I swear it was like a switch went off in my head, and I was mentally back to being the rage-filled 18-year-old. All these years, and he never learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was frickin' serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit, and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up, I shouted how he was a pathetic father, pathetic man. His family all know he's a disgrace of a human being who would rather his son be treated like crap than defend him because he's a frickin' coward. No one would ever see him as an example to live by. His wife would rather bang half the neighborhood than even touch him, and he should never, ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting, and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane just how quickly being away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it's okay. Again, best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it, and I'm now going to resume my therapy, that's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded what always needed to be said onto him. Extended family is pretty mixed with reactions. His brothers and my uncles said it was time for him to hear it from me. My grandparents are ticked I did that in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of everyone. Yeah, notice that no one's actually blaming you for what you said? Like everyone's thinking it. And you can't blame Opie for cracking in this situation. It's probably years of built-up resentment and rage just pouring out. Let's go to some comments. It sounds like you finally got to express the pent-up feelings you've carried for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it seems like it was a necessary step towards healing. It's good you're resuming therapy to process this further. Opie replies, "Yeah, afterwards it hit me that although it was very cathartic, it definitely wasn't the most appropriate way to handle it, lol." He sounds like a gentle, kind and well-meaning person. You directed what is very clear anger and resentment for your mother at him. It's a bit more complicated than being an a-hole or not. You seem to have gotten some catharsis out of it. I just don't believe he's the one you really wanted to scream at, and from the sounds of it, he was also a victim of your mother too. And while he was the adult and should have known better, he obviously didn't. Being non-confrontational isn't some character flaw, it's psychological, and he probably needs therapy himself. Screaming at him and demeaning him actually sounds like something your mother probably did or would do, and I worry about you if that's something that actually made you feel better about yourself. Opie replies, "Yes, I fully admit he was a victim of my mother, but he was a victim who had a support system he never wanted to use. He fully let me be a victim my entire childhood because apparently it was too much effort to try, and to this day doesn't believe he needs therapy." All I can say is based on your post and this interaction is your anger is deeply misguided, and you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate. Opie says, trust me, I fully hate her as well, but she's gone, and there's no use in holding a grudge against a dead person. I had hoped, though, after his son making him an outsider in his life, his family openly joking face-to-face about his failings as a father, and his ex-wife draining him for everything he had and making him start over in a one-bedroom apartment, his friends slowly leaving his life one at a time out of embarrassment, that he would have maybe had at least one moment to reflect and maybe consider he should have done things differently. Opie comments on getting therapy due to his past trauma. Yeah, either way I need to hop back on the horse for therapy. It'll be good for me. As for my grandparents, I really have had to look back as to how far this pattern of enabling goes back. I know they all did what they could to try to help, but it always seemed like there were times that more active measures could be taken. Times where people should have been far more stern with his addressing his behaviour. The older generation on his side are the classical, they're family and we stick together no matter what, and I have to think whether his passiveness and enabling is something he picked up on his own, or something he learned from his own parents. Now for an update 2 days later. Thanks for the advice and recommendations, even amongst some of the You're the A-holes. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringeworthy. One, some of them were very angry, and they kinda confused me at first until I saw their comments further down or saw their profile, and saw rants about double standards or complete non sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, and there were great dark reflections about how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life. 2, some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I'm just being a big bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's world, because so many people forget how they are part of the abuse themselves. And 3, some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine, and I had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realised I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong. She'd known me for years and has always known me to be level-headed and understands why I kinda snapped. She herself has a history of dealing with narcissistic family, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family since my father will always be there. I told her, don't worry, I'm immediately going to talk to them afterwards to figure that out. So that part's fine. Looked like kind of an ass in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed her of my intentions to resume more therapy just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologised as well for putting such a sore dent into their family reunion, that it wasn't appropriate, and while I still feel it felt good to say that to him, it should have been privately and not in front of everyone. I also told them that, going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out in one group that my father will always be in, for now, until I can handle being around him, I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable interacting. I told them that I am, nor would I ever be establishing an ultimatum or demands of them, and that either way, I need to step back. I guess during my apology and explanation, I was kinda just going on a tangent because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kinda separated or slowly started leaving, and they eventually were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freak out resulted in my grandmother having a mini freak out of her own when she started talking to my father, resulting in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said that it's become a bit of an open family secret my father's failing. His brothers taunt him about it and generally don't have a great relationship with him, and for my grandparents it's always just uneasy. But seeing me the other day and how it still affects me so much has really kicked in for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and say sorry if they didn't do enough, which I very adamantly retorted that they did more than what anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but culminated in them telling me that they've decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being, and have given him the ultimatum that unless he has a deep introspective and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, are going to try and reach out or call or whatever, but I asked them if they could relate to them that it's not necessary, and that I'm fine, and I'm sorry to them as well for ruining the day, which again they told me I shouldn't apologise for being hurt. Since then, extended family have sent some messages with the general consensus that it's okay with some older members complaining about my lack of respect towards my father. And finally, I texted my father, hoping to meet at a local coffee shop and have a final talk. I met him and he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. I had so many things I could have said, but I instead asked him first thing if the coworker he gave the advice to took it well. He just said that neither him nor several coworkers interact with him anymore. I asked him if he truly 100% believes that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I then finally asked if he has any regrets for how I was treated as a child, and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded and could have gone on another rant, but instead I told him this should be goodbye, and I hope he gets the help he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I really needed to finally be able to move on and find peace. I absolutely need to keep on track for therapy and admit that a public being moment isn't okay, but I should be fine. One comment says, "This is an interesting one. The ability to control one's failures, yes, that's what I'll call your situation, is very powerful. You'll do all right." Congratulations sincerely on owning your actions. No matter how justified, you acknowledged your outburst was uncomfortable for others and likely not appropriate in that setting. It takes incredible strength of character to admit your failings, even if you have no idea how else you could have reacted in that moment. That you immediately communicated that to your loved ones is a huge sign of how respectable and genuine you are as a person. I really hope you keep moving forward from this situation with the same mindset. Good luck. Not the a-hole. It sounds like you handled things well after what happened. You took responsibility by apologizing to your girlfriend and family, and it's clear you're committed to moving forward by focusing on therapy and healing. It's understandable that you snapped given everything you've been through. It's also clear that your outburst made your family realize the impact your dad's behavior had on you. Don't beat yourself up over it. You've done what you needed to do to move on, and it seems like you're on the right track now. Okay guys, now for a new update, 3 weeks later. Things have progressed over the last couple of weeks, and I now have broader context about my family. Long story short is, there was a lot hidden from me. My father was an absolute a-hole to his family, and that's why they treat him the way they do. I got a lot of feedback, including the compilation posts on Reddit, and one thing that stood out was people questioning if my extended family could have contributed to the abuse, and that's why he was so feeble. And since I was trying to work on my relationship with my family, I figured it was time to ask the hard questions before going that far. I met with my dad's brothers who invited me out to a popular lunch spot. For context and clarity, Dale is the oldest brother. He is married and has a daughter and a son. My father is the second oldest, self-explanatory. John is the second youngest, also married with a son. And Bill is the youngest, married with 3 daughters. So anyways, we met up and I ripped the band-aid off asking about my father growing up, what he was like beyond the basics I know, and what really is going on with their relationship. Dale sighed and basically summed up that besides what I know, there's a lot of backstory I'm unfamiliar with that they never told me about, simply because it was never the time nor the place to. What I've always known is that my father was fairly normal when he was young, a little shy but fantastic academically, played sports occasionally, had a close-knit relationship with his brothers, and meeting my mum in high school junior year made everything go downhill. What I didn't know was that my father was a guiding figure for his 2 younger brothers, was generally seen as one of the nicest people with a bright future ahead of him. My grandparents adored him and he even became a little bit of a golden child, but no one minded. The reason his family doesn't respect him is what happened to his behavior when my mother got attached to him. It first started simple. My mother acted rude and distant to the family. They weren't huge fans, but my father loved her, so they tolerated it. She became possessive and slowly isolated my father and convinced him to give up his ambitions and goals. Family became concerned and spent a long time trying to talk to him and convince him to leave. My father didn't budge and began to lash out. When I was born, my extended family tried to talk to my father about my mother's attitude. My father was angry and threatened to report them for harassment. He was in denial about her behavior. When Dale's wife was having fertility issues, my mother messaged her appalling and cruel things. When Dale was ticked and went to talk to my father, He told Dale to drop it and even justified it. Dale punched him and the police almost got involved. Dale hated him going forwards. John grew to hate him when my mother insulted his son due to mild physical disabilities. My father cracked a joke about what she said. John hated him then. Finally, Bill, who always idolized my father, tried to inform my father that my mother made a pass at him and urged divorce. My father responded with a maddening call of utter hate and relationship-ending words. To sum it all up, the more time my father spent with my mother, the more he began to repeat her attitude. When they all saw signs of abuse to me and tried to intervene, my father threatened to lie, to accuse them of worse things. My mother had money and lawyers could make their lives hell if they tried, and my father would gladly let her. They were stuck and could only do so much at a time. The older members of the family, like the grandparents, great and uncles and such, believe in the traditional mindset of family sticking together no matter what, while the generations further down want to keep a distance from him. They're all stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's more they told me, and it was all essentially that my father died on the hill for my mum, ruining his relationship with his brothers in the process, and when she died and destroyed him, he probably had to realise it was all for nothing. My grandparents seemed to not want to accept the fact that he was lost, or maybe they hoped he can fix his life. Who knows? This was a lot to process and was only confirmed by my father himself when he called me to ask about family therapy with us. I cut to the chase and asked if what I heard was true. He said yes. I would have agreed to maybe some family therapy, but now I have no idea. Wow, okay guys, and that's the final update so far. I mean, yeah, no surprises that the mother was the deep root of all the problems, but the father's unwillingness to listen to his loved ones and ignore all the red flags is just complete negligence, right? Like, I think you can kind of feel sorry for him to a certain point, but after that, there's no excuses for him tolerating it. And it's clear that that line was crossed a long time ago. When the abused becomes the abuser, they're still liable. Let's read some final comments. Honestly, at this point, Opie should do his best to just focus on himself. The relationship with him and his father just isn't going to work out. Opie was basically his dad's meat shield throughout his entire childhood, and apparently that was a pattern. Turns out that man threw his siblings under the bus as well. And now the idea is family therapy. If something is so deeply ingrained that you're willing to throw your child and siblings to the wolves just so that you can maintain your own illusion, then I really don't think that, quote, let's work on our relations is the way forward. If anything, if I were OP, I'd be very wary that this is just the latest attempt to let others take the heat while he stays out of the spotlight, pretending to be the good guy. Most of us expected this. People can start a victim and end up complicit or a full-blown participant in abuse. What happened to them is sad, but it doesn't excuse hurting other people, and especially not kids. One thing I keep seeing on Reddit is the idea that everyone should be perfect all the time, and that somehow yelling is the ultimate crime. The idea seems to be that, yes, the other person abused you for years and destroyed your sense of self, but you yelled and that's way worse. It sometimes gets to the point that posters get Darvoed in the comments. Sometimes people deserve to have their own actions shoved back into their face. Sometimes taking the higher ground is just gaslighting yourself right back into abuse. Opie's dad was a terrible father. Was the mother worse? Ultimately yes, but the father wasn't that far behind, even without knowing about all the other crap. The father let a woman abuse his child and expected a gold star for it. He still believed that not only was he in the right, but that he is the family champion. The man needed to be brought down to earth. The family reunion wasn't an ideal place, but the comments were acting like Opie planned this. It wasn't planned. If Opie asked the dad to go into another room and had a quiet chat about it, Dad would have just gaslit again and they'd be in the same spot. Sometimes the only way to get through to someone is to make it big enough they can't brush it aside. Opie didn't start out with that intention, but it's what happened, and now maybe the dad will understand that he's not the hero of this story. Yeah, I totally agree with that last comment there. Some of the comments after reading the first post were a little bit harsh, I thought too. What did you guys think? As always, let me know your thoughts down below. Either way, we're moving on again. Alright, back over on relationship advice. This one was written by user Igloo2018 and it's titled 6 months postpartum, my fiance tells me he loves me less. How to Navigate Emotionally as a Single Parent. As the title says, I'm 27, female, 6 months postpartum with my beautiful son, my first and only. I've been with my fiancée, 26, going on 6 years, and I'm shattered. When I was pregnant, I started to notice my fiancé withdrawing from me emotionally and physically. For my birthday, 1 week before our son was born, he got me a Starbucks gift card, $25. That was the gift. For Mother's Day, he handed me a dead bouquet of flowers he left in the garage overnight without water, and a card that should have been made out to his own mother, not the mother of his child. We've had a dead bedroom since my pregnancy. I've communicated to him many times that I'd like for us to work on that. Of course, parents of newborns sometimes go through a roommate phase. I would communicate with him that I'm ready to get back to it. To no avail. He continues to lay in bed watching TikToks while I get our son down for bed, and that's that. Last night I finally pushed for more direct communication around this feeling. Why is he no longer interested in intimacy? After he skirted around some excuses, he finally tells me, "I think you love me more than I love you." He explained that there are levels to love, and that maybe we're just on different levels. I asked, "Has it always been that way?" To which he replies, "I guess I just love you less now." To say I'm shattered is kind of an understatement. If we're being honest, I saw it coming. I could feel it. I've spent my pregnancy and the last 6 months being the sole provider, especially financially, for our child. I juggle our baby while working from home. I do it all while fiancé is out of town for work most of the time. He says infidelity isn't a part of this, but who knows? Our relationship was never like this before our son. Even though it's not necessarily my fault, I feel like I already failed as a mother and wonder what my son will think as he gets older. My fiancé stated he's hopeful we work through this, but I said I'm sorry. I can't just make you love me more. What's been said can't be unsaid, you know? 6 months postpartum, and I'm about to be a single mum at 27. Let's go to the comments. Why do you think you failed your son? You're an amazing mum who is engaged to a deadbeat father and a crappy partner. Opie replies, I think the heaviness is that I picked the wrong partner. Now seeing how things played out, I never would have been engaged or had a child if I'd known how he'd change with becoming a parent. Commenter asks, pregnancy was planned? Opie says unexpected, but he was all for it when we found out. Another comment says, quote, I feel like I already failed as a mother. The only way you would have failed as a mother in this case is if you didn't try to address the problem with the child's father. You aren't responsible for what other people do and say. You're only responsible for what you do and say. Here's some questions you could ask him. How does he plan to work this out? I mean, I'm not even in your situation, and I could name a few things off the top of my head. Spending more alone time together, have somebody babysit, by going on dates, be more involved in listening to you talk about life besides mother talk to a therapist, etc. If he did want to work things out, then how come he made no actions or effort and remained passive until you brought it up? I mean, I can't say I want to be a professional sports player and then expect any good results while not practicing. Opie replies, Hey, thanks for your reply. I do make an effort to plan a date night here and there. Thankfully, my mum gladly watches our son so we can do. But it's not really quality time. He's always on his phone, taking calls for work, and his dad, whom he works with. I think he was fine with complacency. He lives with me rent-free. I'm financially supporting our son mostly by myself. I never expected this to be the dynamic. He just doesn't step up. He owns his own business but puts all the money back into it. Always complains about being broke, etc. He's basically getting a free ride, so I imagine he wouldn't want to bring it up, lol. Someone asks, why are you letting him live rent-free? He needs to help you and your son financially. Opie says, we live with my mum, who doesn't charge him or us rent. We live in a high cost of living area and weren't living together when I initially became pregnant. He works for his dad, lives rent-free with you covering all the bills, and yet he's 1, out of town for work, and 2, always broke. This does not add up, literally. Is his dad not paying him? Opie replies, so he owns the company and his dad works with him. They blow money on equipment for the biz, hotels for travel, etc. They blow money before it even hits their accounts, honestly. If your partner works out of town, then why are you the sole provider financially for your child? Does he do any hands-on parenting at all? Spend any time with the baby? Loving you less is quite a vague position. I could hypothesize a number of reasons why he may feel an emotional shift. Some people find that the arrival of a child causes them to view their partner as a mother and not an object of sexual desire. If he wants to work through it, couples counselling could assist. Opie replies, he supposedly puts all and any profit back into the business, but I know for a fact profits are low because he and his dad blow the money on equipment, etc. He's not that hands-on. I have to basically ask him to babysit so I can take a bath or shower. He just props our son into a baby chair and sits on his phone. It's pathetic. I'm not sure couples counselling would be good for me. I'm pretty checked out mentally and emotionally now that he told me he loves me less. If I'm honest, I don't think it can be repaired. Now for an update. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. I mostly posted to vent, and I'm really glad I did. Now for the update. I decided to rip the band-aid off and end things. Engagement is ended, relationship is ended, all of it. After dinner, our son was taking a nap, and I asked fiancé when he planned on moving out. Long story short, I had him pack a bag and stay elsewhere tonight. He'll start packing his belongings tomorrow. I realised that I can't do this. I can't forgive being told he loves me less. That's not the example or standard I want to set for my child as he grows. Love isn't something you need to beg for, work for, or pretend. To make it worse, I asked fiancé if he felt this way when he got engaged last August, to which he said, yes, I've just been lying to myself. This man had a baby with me and knew, possibly beforehand, that his heart wasn't in it, but didn't have the guts to tell me. So here we are, 6 years down the drain. I'm not sure if the reality of a child hit him, if infidelity is involved on his part, or if he lost attraction to me in the process of being pregnant. Could be all of the above, but I'll never know, and that's okay. I'm the primary provider for our son, and that won't change. Our son, 6 months, will remain living with me full time, and fiancé is welcome to visit son. We'll work out an agreement to ensure he fulfills his financial obligation to our child, and I'm not afraid to pursue the legal route if needed. I'm 6 months postpartum. This is my first, and wow, it's been hard, but now I'm officially doing it solo, and with the help of my mum. I'm doing the damn thing, and I'm going to do my best. Wish me luck. Thank you to everyone for the words of encouragement. And that's that, ladies and gents. You know the drill. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And that's it from me today. I hope you guys enjoyed those stories. Thanks for making it to the end, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good day. Cheers.